first of all, I'll just get a show of hands. Who here has their own business right now? Okay, cool. And who here has a full-time job or part-time job and a side hustle? Anyone? Okay, perfect, cool. All right, so I'm absolutely honoured to be sharing the stage with three amazing female founders. So I'll just kick off by asking something that Chris loves to ask, and I think it's an amazing question to start off with. What was your first entrepreneurial experience? You know, has it always been in your DNA? Were your parents entrepreneurs? Where did it all kind of start for you? We'll start with you, Shah.
Interesting question. And hopefully, you know, a common story that some of you in the room can share with today. I think, you know, you spend your time studying really hard, getting a job you think you really want, acquiring the skills that you think make you really competitive, and you work for a company that it looks great on paper and you actually secretly hate. And so you think to yourself, well, I can probably do this myself at some stage. Is it now? Maybe. Is it later? Absolutely. And so for me, it was as soon as I had acquired the experience in San Francisco, worked in tech PR, moved to Australia and thought, it's time. It's time to go out on my own.
Amazing. How about you, Emily?
Roving mic. This is controversial around whether you can learn entrepreneurship or whether it's in your DNA. I believe you have to be a certain type of person. This is my opinion. I don't know how well it can be learned, that risk appetite to be able to do something. So my first business, which wasn't really anything, but at 16, I decided I wanted to have my own business, and I started drop shipping before I knew drop shipping was a thing. and I think I knew then that I really wanted to do something myself, and I wanted to be my own boss. And that was my introduction into that world. And it wasn't until a lot later on when I started my other company at 22 that I really felt that. But yeah, that's kind of my journey around that.
How did the business go at 16?
Not well. No, it didn't go well. We're not writing about it in papers, are we? It didn't go well. But I gave it a go. I think the desire for, for paving my own path was always there. And I have different reactions with different people around this, and I think that it isn't something. If you're not a person that that is going to be able to go through the hard work of founding something and do that, and not everyone is, and that's why we don't have a million. That's why not everyone's founding a company, because it's hard. But you also have to be a certain type of person. But to a point, you can learn that, but you also have to have something there to begin with. Yeah.
And how about you, Kate?
So my mother's relatively entrepreneurial and has had several businesses when I was young, and grew businesses and sold them, and grew businesses and sold them. So I probably had my first real capital raising experience when I was 9 years old.
Wow.
You may remember, well, you may not, I'm from the UK, and there was actually it was called the Hillsborough disaster. It was in a football stadium, and there was a massive rush of people down at the stadium, and all these people effectively got crushed and died, and that was horrendous. But the thing that I found truly horrendous was that there was a horse that also got crushed, and as a mad horse lover at 9 years old, I discovered that this horse had been crushed, and the police were trying to fundraise to buy him a retirement. So I went and raised £700 through various activities, from lemonade stands through to cyclothons and others. And then from then on ended up raising money a lot of times for charities, mainly for four-legged creatures. But I have to say that I actually think that entrepreneurship is a muscle. I think entrepreneurship is something that absolutely can be learned. But I do agree that you have to have the right people around you that know how to make sure you don't strain that muscle. And so that's making sure that you are supported through risky environments. So it's just like when we go to a gym and get on a treadmill, and I have a great friend who routinely gets on a treadmill once every 3 months, runs a marathon, and then wonders why you can't walk the next day. If you do that with your startup entrepreneurial muscle, you're going to fail. So you've got to have the right fitness training to train that muscle to be successful. And it's making sure you've got the right networks around you to be supported, to be entrepreneurial.
Amazing, great advice. And now let's dive down into your businesses. So we'll start with you, Shah. Tell us about Finch, hugely successful, congratulations, amazing, you're doing amazing so far. How did the idea, where did the idea stem from? How did it all kind of begin for you?
Like 5 questions there.
How did it all
so sure, start from the start. Used to live in San Francisco, working in tech PR, and obviously got first dibs, obviously in Silicon Valley, with all the amazing fintech apps that could do everything for you, from budgeting to saving to paying friends. And so we got used to that life, and we loved it, and moved back to Australia to discover there was nothing like it. So even something as simple as Venmo, which is the peer-to-peer payments over there, and Mint, a personal finance budgeting app, there wasn't anything like that. So we saw a real gap in the market and a real opportunity to build something that we felt that the Australian customers would love. And I think with the banking landscape at the time, the banks weren't doing a lot to satisfy their customers and provide the customer experience and user experience that they deserve. So Finch is, for those of you who don't know, Finch is a financial app for your social life that allows you to pay friends instantly, pay and request money instantly without BSVs. You can split bills, create group tabs to track shared expenses. So think of housemates or travel mates, or even just, best mates that see each other frequently. And then of course track all of your social spending in one place. If you don't have Finch yet, please jump on tonight. And we've got a little promo running. So if you jump on Finch and you request $5 from Finch promo, we'll stick $5 credit in your wallet to have a play around with the app.
Amazing.
So please go ahead and do that.
Perfect. And you recently last year got funded, so huge congratulations. I know that's a big kind of pain point for a lot of startups when they're getting going. So how did you go about getting the funding? What was that process like?
Capital raising is one of the hardest things you'll do as a founder, particularly at the seed stage. I think that you need to be really prepared for the time that it takes to raise capital. It's a process that you pretty much want to be over as soon as it begins, because it's all consuming. It takes a lot of your focus and energy away from the business. So you have to kind of think ahead and make sure that your team, or the where you're at in where you're at with the product in general, can afford time away from the business. In terms of asking yourself whether you're ready to raise capital, I think there's a couple of ingredients that probably signal to you as a founder that you're ready. Number one, you have a great story to tell and you know how to tell it. Number two, that you have the team that is capable on executing the vision. So, team that's experienced, the team that has done this before, a team that can fulfill the company's vision. And finally, making sure that, the market is big enough, that the problem is big enough, and that investors are going to be excited by the size of the prize.
And did you have to send quite a lot of pitch decks and go to a few investor meetings? Like, how many pitch decks did you send? What did that look like?
A whopping total of 8.
Wow, that was amazing.
Yeah. So we were very strategic with who we approached. I think it's really important to know as a founder the type of investor that you want to be that you want on board. And so we were very careful with selecting investors who we felt could support our vision, that had either the experience, the network, the synergies, the expertise to help us scale from where we're at right now to hopefully a Series A and beyond.
Yeah, amazing. Because it is a two-way process. I mean, if you are giving equity away in your business, you want to make sure they're going to add value to the business as well. It's extremely important. And Emily, we'll go on to you now.
Yes.
So you have an amazing story to tell. So you launched Gemsoft.
Yes.
And you've had every founder's dream. You launched and then sold.
Yes.
So first off, tell us about Gemsoft.
Okay. So Gemsoft was an AI based company. So it started in computer vision, moved into machine learning, serviced B2B. So we worked with a whole bunch of different, from Fortune 500s to startups, essentially, servicing through an API model. So sold that at the start of last year and have since started a venture company with my partner, Alan Jones, and we invest in really early stage startups. Mm-hmm. So our sweet spot is pre-seed, early seed.
Mm-hmm. And what led you to want to partner in the MA Ventures?
I think from when I sold to what was next for me, it was I wanted to go into VC. I wanted to start angel investing. So I started angel investing before I went into VC and started picking companies I really, really liked, and then partnered up with Alan, and he'd been doing the same. He'd been angel investing for about 10 years, so here's a few more years on me, but we then partnered up and started a VC fund, and we've been raising that ever since. So I guess the idea to go into investing in startups rather than starting another startup, which is what a lot of people do, was I really wanted to be part of multiple journeys and help a whole range of people. So in early stage investing, there's a lot of importance on mentoring and building our business models and that type of thing, which I love doing. That's just something I really love doing. So it sort of suits me. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What do you look for in the founders and the businesses that you invest in?
Yeah, so at early stage, it's all about, our main thesis is it's founders plus, if there is a team, it's what team have the founders chosen, mm-hmm. and why, and it's also deep diving into the product. So that's around what we look at. So I like seeing founders that are very, very passionate about the problem that they're solving. Mm-hmm. I think that's what I was like as a founder, and I think that it's also really important because being a founder is so hard, as you said before. Yeah. It is so hard. So you need to be passionate. If you're not, you're going to struggle, mm-hmm. big time. So I'm looking for passion and where you see your gaps, if you're very mindful and self-aware of that you can't do everything, mm-hmm. but you can also see that, I can build a team off of this, and these are the people I've chosen on my journey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's really important.
Yeah. I think it's really hard for a founder to pass the reins.
So hard.
Like, you can't do it all.
Yeah, but you can't. No, it's not possible because you're one person.
Exactly.
And so seeing a good founder who's able to share that knowledge and also pass the reins mm-hmm. onto multiple people and be, okay, you need to be my head of engineering, or you need to be this. Mm-hmm. I can't be that anymore because we need to scale. Yeah. It's so mm-hmm. hard as a founder, but it's so important.
Yeah. Well, it's your baby, isn't it?
It is. It's hard.
Yeah,
it's hard. All of this is hard.
Yeah.
FYI.
That's a trend. and Kate, we'll come on to you now. So, CEO of LaunchVic. So huge, amazing opportunity. What was your background prior to that role?
My background's eclectic. And LaunchVic is the thing that brings it all together. So I actually, I did a PhD in electrical engineering, in telecommunications engineering, and I, as part of my PhD, spent some time in the States and came back and was really dismayed at the state of Australia's broadband. And my brother-in-law said, there's this guy called Stephen Conroy, he's probably going to be the next minister, you should apply for the role to be his broadband advisor. And I thought, oh gosh, do I want to go into politics? No, but I ended up putting in an application and I got an interview and I got the job. Wow. So my first experience in business was taking a $4.7 billion fibre to the node network to a $43 billion fibre to the premise network. So I am known for getting extra zeros on the end when I capital raise and mixing up my millions and billions, which does confuse investors when you pitch to them. So that was my first kind of role in government, working on the NBN. And then I went to Melbourne University and I ran a research institute called the Institute for a Broadband Enabled Society, where we developed about 80 mobile apps in health and education. And then from there I went and worked in NBN Co. I decided that I really wasn't meant to work in the corporate environment, so I went and ran a startup. I was actually a CEO, so I joined the startup first of all as a board member, and then had to make the very difficult decision that the current management wasn't up to the task of scaling the company, just what you were talking about. So I called it out, and I was asked if I would take on the role of being a CEO of this company. So I stepped in and did that for 3 years. So we ended up taking the company, we raised over $10 million, and we did a listing on the ASX, which was a huge learning curve. The company is still around. I stepped out and decided that I really didn't want to work in an environment where I was really struggling to pay staff and knowing exactly where the next paycheck was going to come from, and I was going to have some time off. The very next day I got a phone call from a headhunter saying, would you like to take on a role that is working with government around industry and innovation policy, startups? It's called LaunchVic, it's a new entity, and I thought it was a once in a lifetime opportunity to be privileged enough to be leading a sector that you are so deeply passionate about. And hearing and experiencing everybody's journeys is so rewarding. So I feel really, really lucky to be in the role that I'm in and being able to help guide our ecosystem.
And I guess that's what excites you about the opportunity to work with founders all day and guide them and help them to...
Yeah, and it's about making sure that, you know, I had a journey that there are many things I would do again, but there are many, many more things that I would do differently. And if there were the support structures in place today that we have helped put in place at LaunchVic and others are putting in place, I would have made very different decisions for the company that I ran. So the importance of having the right mentors, the right board, the right investors, the right access to accelerators really, really makes a difference. So at LaunchVic we're able to put in place programs that are going to help entrepreneurs. And to date we've helped over 800 entrepreneurs and over 55 individual startup businesses that have gone on to raise and do other things, have been through LaunchVic programs. So it's really fantastic to see that come to life and be supporting people on their journeys.
Amazing, amazing. And we'll go into a bit more depth now into failures, because I think, you know, it's important to learn from them. So we'll start again with you, Shah. What's been your biggest failure or mistake you've made so far, and how did you overcome it, or did you overcome it?
My biggest. There's so many. You know, there's so many.
I pick one.
And I feel like our journey has been. It's quite a short one. So we've only just launched in July of last year. We raised capital in October. We completed our seed round hiring in last month, and so I don't know if I can, you know, name one particular failure. What I will say is that it's something you have to be prepared to do every single day, on every single scale. You will make mistakes on a project level, you will make mistakes on a strategic level, you will make mistakes on a hiring level, and you just have to eat it and get over it really quickly and get up the next day, and you know, it's a new day, it's a new opportunity.
And that's what I was about to say, it takes a very strong mindset to do that, because a lot of people, you know, they would fail and then they go, oh, this isn't for me, I'm going to go back to my day job. So how do you deal with that mentally?
Remind yourself of your why. You know, why are you here? Why are you doing it? If you have investors, remind yourself that you've got people backing you. You've got people who believe in you. You have a team. We have a team of, you know, 14 who believe in what we do, and that's what gets you up and into the right mindset, because they're looking up at you for leadership and direction.
Amazing. How about you, Emily?
Oh,
Name a few.
so many. This is hard. Like building a business is hard, right? And I I talk about this a lot. One of the biggest things I harp on about is choosing the right investors. So this is really, really important to be strategic, much to your point before actually around choosing strategic investors. So I feel as though if we had very strategic investors, we could have done more. And that is what I feel has been my biggest failure, was people have money, you can take money, but taking the right money and taking smart money. And this is what I harp on all the time at founders in my portfolio and other people I meet and mentor, and everything is around taking that really strategic investment and not making a decision just to take something for the money. Take it for more than the money. And that's the biggest thing that I could.
That's also one of the hardest things as well, because when you're a new business, you need money to get your idea off the ground. So you do get quite desperate and you just go, yep, I'll take that. And then, a year down the track, as your startup grows, it's it's thinking, did I obviously make the wrong decision? And
Yeah, you'll take it from anyone, really.
Yeah.
Anyone that's willing to, especially if you need, generally you're in a position where you need to raise capital. Otherwise you're going to die, as the nicest way possible. Not really, but you're not going to die, but your startup's going to die, and so you kind of get into this point where you get desperate, and that's where it gets really bad if you get to the desperate point. So I'd say that if you need to raise capital, you start really early. Most of the companies I advise start like 6 months out. Wow. They'll start raising for the next round. So it's really strategic then. It's really strategic. Yeah.
And Kate, you work with a lot of founders. Are these quite common mistakes that get made?
Absolutely, and I'm thinking my own perspective. Very much. We got wrong investors in our company, and I had to exactly.
That's what I had the same thing.
We would have had a very different journey, even though the company's still around. The company would have a very, very different journey if we had the right investors on board. And so we thought they were the right investors at the time. And I think it's a very difficult thing to say, how do you pick your investor? Because often the investor is sitting across the table going, yep, no, I back you, I back your idea. But actually what they're backing is not your idea. What they're backing is the fact that the idea can make money. And so when it came to our business, we were looking at really, you may recall 7-Eleven and some of the employment issues that were going around and still are going around, where people aren't paid the correct award rates. Well, I really wanted to take the business down a social enterprise route, even though it wasn't necessarily a social enterprise. We were trying to get B Corp registration, and our investors didn't like that because they didn't see that as being the way to profitability. So even though they thought our platform was basically Uber for staffing, and although I would kill our salespeople if ever they said that, but that's what it was simply. And we wanted to make sure employees got paid the right amount, and if there was decisions to make, and we had businesses that came to us and didn't want to pay the right amount, and we turned business down, and that's ultimately where the investors felt that we were taking the wrong strategy, whereas we thought we were taking the right strategy. So it can be very very difficult. Personally, I think there's other failures that I learned from. I think one of the biggest failures was actually not standing up to people. Even though I am renowned for being quite tough in a very gentle way, and I'm very resilient, I can let people say things to me that you just think, oh, that doesn't matter, and it compounds. And we had, there were people that, in the circle of the company that routinely called me Dal. Hey Dal, how are you, Dal? And it's nothing that important, but it just builds up, and you actually let it go, and then 2 years down the track, you're still the little girl that people are patting on the head, and you're not taken seriously. They would never go and call a male founder Dal. They would, maybe mate in a friendly way, and I don't think it was done out of malice, but it was done in a way that was actually putting me down. And I didn't let it put me down, but ultimately they did it in front of other people, and it just took hold. And I don't believe I was a respected CEO in the role by some people in the circles that we were in. And it was I should have called it out from the get-go. I should have been tougher, and I knew that it wasn't right for me, but I didn't call it out.
And have you ever, in your role now at LaunchVic, sort of had to go in and work with a startup and help them turn it around? Have you had to sort of go in and...
So we don't work directly with startups. We work directly with funding recipients. But even in grant funding recipients, you see great examples of success, and you see examples where people can improve. And for example, we are supporting 13 accelerators. Not all accelerators perform at the same rate. So we want to help those that aren't performing as well. So we do work with them. And I think that's part of what you need to do if you're investing, which is effectively what we are doing, investing in the people that are supporting founders. So many of these people are deeply, deeply passionate about what they do. Many of them are founders and have been on a journey. But many of them haven't run an accelerator before. So we get to see, we get to cross-reference, we get to compare with best practice. And so I think whatever you do, you should be helping people be better and help the ecosystem be stronger. And I think so much of a successful ecosystem is about paying it forward and paying it back. So if you see something that can be uplifted, there are ways that you can do that in a really nice way that is going to make everybody be better and stronger, and that's what we are about. I can see there is a question behind you which says, how do we think Victoria stacks up globally?
Are you going to answer it now?
We are currently the 5th fastest growing ecosystem in the world right now. We are growing at a phenomenal rate, and we need to make sure that people are supporting each other. We don't do enough to support each other. What we tend to find is the community builders like Chris are incredibly well connected and are always creating and helping each other. What we tend to find is that founders aren't supporting other founders as much. And I think there's a view that young founders need to learn from founders that are, the Paul Bassetts and the Cyan Tayeeds and the Mark Redbubble, and so you look at these great role models, but in actual fact the best mentor might be the person that's 3 months ahead of you. They might be the person sitting next to you at your co-working space. They might be this person sitting next to you tonight. So if there's any message I can leave you with is, if you see somebody who can be, you think you can help them, because we will be stronger, and we want to be stronger. Because ultimately, the reason the government invests in us and the reason we do our work is this is about the future of work. This is really important economic development, and we are a massive job creator. And I don't think the startup sector is taken seriously enough as an important part of the ecosystem, of the industry in across the world, but in Victoria included. If you just take the subsector of digital marketplaces that we're really strong in, last year they created 88,000 jobs in the state. That's a phenomenal amount of work. So when you're thinking about where do we need to invest to help grow our future jobs, the startup sector is a massive job creator, but only if we can help companies scale. So we need to support each other. It's not a tall poppy syndrome. We only get there by being there, supporting each other every step of the way.
Yep, I totally agree. And there's a lot of people in the audience that have, side hustles, maybe want to quit their jobs and start their journey. What advice would you give to those people that, are really early on and perhaps, have a great idea but don't know what to do next?
Do it. Only do it if you're passionate enough to do it. But at the end of the day, if you really want to start a startup, you won't get it off the ground as well as if you're full-time on it. A side hustle is one thing, but if you're really serious, I don't think you could be sitting here growing Finch the way you are, doing the fantastic job you're doing if it was a side hustle. It's what you live, it's what you breathe, it's what you wake up to at 6 a.m, it's what you go to sleep to at 11 p.m. You've got to give it your all, and you've got to back yourself. So,
Anything to add?
Just go all in. Find a way to go all in. The common founder story is, maxing out their credit cards, selling their car, moving in with their parents. In our case, we sold our apartment in San Francisco, which we loved very much. Have skin in the game and know what you're working towards.
Yeah, and that actually brings me on to my next question. It's all about sacrifice. People, they want their business, they want to start the journey, but they still want to be going out for breakfast and dinners and sitting down and chilling to Netflix. Like, how much sacrifice have you all had to make to get to where you all are today?
Oh gosh, a lot. I still haven't finished I have an interesting story. I will shorten it. I was on a full ride scholarship. I actually was one of 4 people, I think, nationally, that was on a scholarship specifically for government in terms of becoming a software developer. And I had a set job and a nice wage and all these really great things, and they were paying for my uni. And I quit, and that was, a lot of people told me I was really crazy, and that was really, really insane to do that. And I don't look back at that and think that was insane. I think that my passion, and much to what we've been discussing here tonight, is if you have something you really love and you really want to do it, you've got to go all in. Mm-hmm. And so while I was actually still a software developer within the government, I eventually quit to go full-time with my startup. So we were doing it on the side for a little while, and then eventually went full-time, and that's when I deferred from uni and all of that sort of thing. So don't suggest, like, maybe don't quit your education. I don't know, like, it's not up to me. But it definitely was, that was like one of the things I sacrificed, was my, I still haven't finished my degree, and I didn't have, for a long time, I spent 2 years not paying myself, and these are sort of things you really sacrifice. So, yeah.
I think as well, entrepreneurship is quite a sexy term at the moment. Everyone's I want to be an entrepreneur, and it's just like, well, do you understand what's involved? It's not glamorous, when you're starting out and people see successful people and, think it's all just this amazing, experience every day, and it's hard work.
Yeah, the overnight success thing. Where they're like, wow, I can't believe what you did in that short period of time. You're like, I've been working at this for like 10 years.
7 days a week.
Every day. You don't get a weekend, you don't get a holiday. My first holiday was last year, the end of last year. My first holiday in 4.5 years. So you don't get that stuff, especially when you're leading a company. So there are people relying on you, plus you have to sacrifice a lot of other things along the way. So it's not completely glamorous. You have to love it. You have to be passionate about it. Reap the rewards, but there's a huge there's all this other stuff that goes with it that people don't talk about.
Celebrate the small wins as well. I think that's really important to keep that momentum. Can I
add something?
Take the mic.
Yes, it is hard work. What I will add is that it's the life you choose.
Yeah.
As an entrepreneur, it's the life you choose. When we talk about giving up our social life or salary or time with family, it doesn't even occur to you as an entrepreneur, because you are so passionate about what you do and what you're committed to building, that there is the business and then there is everything else. And when you are fully committed and when you go all in and you know what's on the line, it's you don't even think about it. Your friends will make comments, and your family will notice that they never see you or answer their calls. But to you, you're living the dream.
Yeah. You don't know anything else.
What's better? You get to wake up every day doing cool stuff you love, building this thing. Will it work? Who knows? But you're taking a red hot crack at it, and it's the life you choose as an entrepreneur. Exactly. So I think there's and I struggle with this, and I wanted to make a point tonight, because there is this, we talk about entrepreneurship as this negative experience. Like, do you know how hard it is? It's 16 hours, and we don't eat, and we don't exercise, and we don't have a life. Yes, that's true, but it's because we want to. Right? Makes sense.
Yeah, you choose it, for sure.
I agree with all of that. The one thing I would, and I certainly, 7 days a week, our business had offices in London, New York and Tel Aviv. and Melbourne, which actually, if you add up, means you can work every hour of the day. So we would wake up in the morning and service New York, and then, you know, like midnight still be talking to Tel Aviv and London. So it's pretty full on. And, you know, if you are invited out to dinner and you're sitting at your friend's kitchen table, which happened to me, and you're thinking, I'm missing that sales opportunity, you know, and you want to be at the sales opportunity more than you want to be at the dinner, that's, you know, definitely a sign that you're an entrepreneur. Having said that, I do think there is a real issue around mental health, and we have to call this out.
Absolutely.
And I absolutely burnt out in my job, to the point that when I stepped out of the business, my body was still going, my mind was still going. I'd made the decision to step out, which was really difficult because the company was still going, it wasn't doing too badly, but it wasn't right for me to keep going in that company. You end up crashing, and I did crash, not very badly, but I definitely, you know, ended up just being utterly exhausted. And it's amazing how many, you just tell people that, and how many people come up to me when I just tell that little story, and people will say, I'm in that spot and I don't know what to do, and I am crying myself to sleep. And there were times that I cried myself to sleep, absolutely. You know, you, particularly when you're the CEO and you're the founder, you know, you're the one that's pretending to the team at times that everything is fine. You know it's fine, and you're thinking, holy crap, if we do not make this sale, this company is, you know, how are we going to get there? And it's fine, team, keep going, you're awesome, we're going to get there. Oh my God, are we really going to make it? And you're always in this perpetual backwards and forwards. And I think that a lot of people can get in that, and if you get in that for years and years and years, it can be detrimental. And I have to acknowledge the really, really brave entrepreneurs that have been extremely successful, far more successful than I will ever be, who have stepped up and made a point of this. I'd call out Chris Pearson, who gave a really heartfelt talk at one of LaunchVic summits last year. If you haven't heard it, go online and Google it. It's an extraordinary story and a lot of insights, and also more recently Unlocked, the founder of Unlocked, I think. I hugely commend him for playing a real leadership role, because it's a really tough topic. Every sector, every family is touched by mental health in some way, shape or form. It is still shunned in our community, and we have to be really prevalent to the fact that it is prevalent in our sector, and we need to acknowledge that. It is nothing shameful about saying you feel completely broken by the amount that you are pushing yourself, and if you get to that boundary, you need people that are going to be there to support you. So I think it's really important we call that out.
Is there any advice you give, like some simple strategies that you've put in place to help you manage stress and anxiety, depression?
Do as I say, not as I do. I think it's really difficult. I think, you know, you can talk about meditation and doing yoga. I certainly do yoga for an hour a week, and I spend most of my yoga sessions thinking about LaunchVic, actually. So it's not particular. I know before that it was the company, but I think it is finding that opportunity. And I think as an entrepreneur, even if you're working 7 days a week, you need to take half a day a week that you're just actually shutting yourself completely off from that business. Half a day sounds like too short, but I also know that when you're in the grind of it, having a whole weekend off feels like you're having 4 weeks leave. You know, it is really, really difficult. So you've got to force yourself to break from the business, and you're actually better when you do. If you can give yourself that complete break, turn the computer off, shut down your phone, don't answer emails, and break, go and do something social, cinema, whatever it is, you will be a much better founder, you'll be a much better employee, and you'll be more successful as a company. But it's really tough to do, particularly when you're in the thick of it, particularly when you're in the thick of capital raising.
Absolutely. And do any of you have like a morning routine that you do? Like, do you wake up, exercise, meditate, like anything that you do on a regular basis to get you in the right state of mind every day?
I wake up, I check my email. I go and have a cup of tea, I answer my emails.
No meditation, no
I
mindfulness.
mean, I'm trying, you know, honestly, like it's what we talk about is, you know, taking this break against your own will, because you don't want to take a break. And, you know, my team's here with me today, like the thought of having to eat lunch and chew on food that takes 5 minutes away from the computer is like, why? Why can't I just live off Soylent already? and it's really tricky because you actually don't want to take that time off. You don't know better. You can't make decisions for yourself that you will benefit from. So my morning routine, I'm trying a new thing. Trying to do, so I used to go to the gym every morning or most mornings, and I'm switching it out for the yoga, so the daily yoga, the daily meditation. And for me, the only time that I have for myself is the morning before I get to work, because as soon as I'm at work, it's like there's no saying how my day will go. I could leave at 7, I could leave at 9. That snippet of 6 till 9 is me time, and whatever I feel with it. So I try to max it out, whatever it is that keeps me centered and focused for the day.
Anything?
I do not do any of that.
Are you an early riser though? Do you get up early?
I don't know anything.
No?
What?
Do you get up early? Are you an early riser?
No.
No?
No, absolutely not. Hate getting up early. Yeah, I don't go to the gym at 6. I can't believe you do that. Oh my gosh. I just aspire to be like that, but I can't do it. I really can't do it. I'm not an early riser, no.
Okay.
I'm like a typical tech person that doesn't want to get up early.
Yeah.
And I guess my morning is initially everyone sort of looks at their phone, it's on charge, and I scroll through all my emails that have come through in the night, and that's like a really bad. Yeah, I feel like that's not good. You do it as well, don't you? Yeah, it's really bad. And so I try to get out of that routine, like have a shower, have breakfast before looking at all your emails. So yeah, I'm trying new things. I'm trying new things.
That's good.
Everyone's trying,
That's
aren't
good.
they?
That's good.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about now, like personal development. Like, do you do anything? Do you have any coaches, mentors? Challenge yourself to read books. What do you do for keep yourself up to date?
You answer?
I definitely read books, and I read a lot of books on management theory. I think there's a lot that you learn about yourself as a manager through a startup experience in a big way, because you have the highest of highs, you have the lowest of lows, and I think there's no other environment where you challenge yourself to learn the depth of who you are as a person. And so I think how you apply that to management is something that I continue to find really fascinating. And I think the role of the team is so important. I've been really blessed to lead fantastic teams, but these are people that are putting their absolute faith in you and your idea and your vision, and you've got to find ways to motivate. You're dealing with different personalities, how you manage that. So I think reading is a big thing. I don't have formal mentors, but I definitely have people that I catch up with semi-regularly who I can ask things, and when I'm confused by something or don't know the answer, they're people that I will ring up and say, can you please help me with this? I wouldn't say it's a formal relationship, but I think it's really important to have a network of people that you feel you can reach out to ask questions in a private setting, that isn't necessarily going to a board member or necessarily going to an investor, but just someone that you can say, hey, I've got this question, how on earth do you blah, blah, blah. I think is really important.
And the only thing I'd add to that is, if I could do that differently, I would find mentors earlier. I think that there's kind of a bit of a founder's stubbornness that you think you don't need to reach out for help, or you can't reach out for help because it's, it makes you seem weak perhaps. But it's incredible the amount of people who are actually willing to help. If it's half an hour of their time, they're wanting to be those entrepreneurs who pay it forward to the new wave coming through. And I've been, as soon as I made the deliberate decision to start reaching out to mentors and building those relationships, the response has been overwhelming, and I wish I had done it a year ago, just to have those, a sounding board that's not a formal investor or mentor.
Yeah. I think reaching out to the investors is probably the wrong thing to do, because they expect you just to kind of almost have all the answers. Well, I've invested in you, you should know that. So having somebody to call upon, and ask these questions I think is really important.
I think it depends on your investors as well. Yeah. One of the things that we're really passionate about at LaunchVic is if you spent time in the Valley or London or Tel Aviv, there's an angel investor is somebody who's been they bring capital, but they bring more than capital, they bring knowledge. And so really, if you talk and listen to the best founders and successful founders, they've often had angels that are fulfilling a mentorship role as much as they're filling an investor role. And when you say, I said before, get the right investors, I definitely did not have that. And I know there's no way I would have gone to our investors with an issue. But for those people that do have that relationship, I think there's an enormous amount that they get, because the investor is there, particularly angel investors are there to wrap knowledge around you and wrap networks, and often they're the person that is most willing to hear your weaknesses, because they're actually there to tap them. They want to know what your weaknesses and what your blind spots are, because they genuinely want to understand how to make your company successful. And as much as they care about you as the CEO, they also care about your business, and they should see you as two separate things. They're related. And so if you've got a blind side or a question, they want to know where that is. I think our angel investment community has got a long way to go to reach that level of maturity. And I think it's something that at LaunchVic we want to play a much stronger role in helping grow our angel community. We have a lot of people in Australia that talk about being angels, but they have never actually seen the insides or guts of a startup. They are investors. That's great, we need them, but they're not an angel investor in the way that you would experience an angel if you were being invested in the Valley or London by the very top investors. So I think there's a terminology thing here, and we do need to respect what an angel investor is and should bring.
Amazing.
I think what Alan and I are definitely trying to do at Mate Ventures is be that mentor as well. So be that smart money, and I think that having run multiple companies between us, we can bring that to the table as well. And you're right, there's a lot of angels in the network that don't know tech, need to put their capital somewhere. Might be lawyers that don't, I'm not calling out lawyers specifically, but they're people that maybe don't know the exact ins and outs of the companies, and have a lot of capital, and we need capital. We need capital.
You clearly have got the experience, and do you mentor yours?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. One of my major roles is mentorship. One of my major roles. So I go in really early stage, specifically because I see that as my sweet spot, and I see that as where I can add a lot of value. For me to go in at Series D, I'm like, what am I giving you, really, at Series D? At seed stage, I can give you a lot. And I started mentoring companies before I even exited my own company. Much to your point before around, keep paying it forward, even if you have a company, but the company next to you might not be as far along, or whatever that kind of looks like. And I think a lot of it for us is what we call smart capital, and mentoring our portfolio companies and giving them capital as well. Yeah, and I think that's super important.
I was on your website earlier, and it says founders, not financiers.
Yeah,
I like it.
Yeah, so we're not MBAs, we're not finance people, we're not fund managers per se. So we're not ex-bankers, we're not. So we come from product technical background, and we know what we're looking for, and we know what makes a successful company successful, essentially. Yeah. And that's what we're looking for, and mentorship is a huge part of that. And much to the point that we've gone through is finding mentors really early, informally, even just catching up for coffee. And I have a lot of mentors that are informal to me that have made such an impact in my career, and I'll be forever thankful to them. And it's not in a formal capacity. It's just informally someone you can be like, what does this look like? Is this like terrible? Or it's really nice to have that network. Yeah.
And let's touch upon female entrepreneurship now.
Here we go.
So what do you think can be done, I guess, to sort of encourage, more female founders? I'd love to see more female founders and more people in tech as well.
Can I say 1 in 4 founders in Victoria are female?
Okay, that's
higher than you thought.
Look at you and your statistics.
Well, we are the policy agency. We have to produce statistics. In Silicon Valley, it's 1 in 10. So if you are over 44 years old, you're more likely to be a female founder than a male founder. So we're
That's
actually
fascinating.
not doing too badly on female founders. The issue is capital and biases, and there's been a lot written about unconscious bias. I think we have a really big problem in Victoria about diversity. And in actual fact, if you live in the regions, you are far less likely to get capital than if you are a female. If you're Indigenous, you're far less likely to get capital. If you're a migrant, you're far less likely to get capital. So I think we need to broaden the debate out from female to diversity more broadly. At the end of the day, having said that, I won't rest until 1 in 2 founders are female, because that is 50% of the population. There is still more work to do. But actually, our diversity issues are far worse than our gender issues.
And how are you going to tackle that? What's the...
Well, we put in place a strategy at LaunchVic last year where we led with diversity and inclusion. So we've actually been investing very heavily in migrant and refugee founders. We actually have just closed a grant round on regional founders. So we are working with local government across Victoria. Local government's incredibly important to regional communities, probably more so than in the city. But they are really, really key part of the community. If people want to set up businesses, you go to your local council. So we're working with local councils to upskill them, and so that they can help support regional entrepreneurs. We're also closing tomorrow, if any Indigenous founders in the room, a grant round for support for Indigenous founders. They are our most underrepresented group per capita. We really are not supporting Indigenous founders, so we'll have a lot more to say in the near future. But there are some great stories, and I would absolutely call out Free to Feed. If none of you, I shouldn't be biased against one of our grants. We have lots of grant recipients that offer great services. But Free to Feed is a food incubator in Northcote that we've supported, and there are people coming through that are truly the most inspirational people I have ever met in my life. And if any of you feel like taking a team exercise, I would highly encourage you look at Free to Feed and what they're doing. And if you know of any migrant founders that are particularly interested in food, look at Now to Launch and have a look at their videos. They are producing some truly, truly world-changing people through that program.
Amazing. And any insights into the female entrepreneurship? Have you come across any hurdles yourself being a female entrepreneur?
So I'll answer this in the context of capital raising. Of the 8, there was 1 female investor present in all of the meetings. I led the pitches, and for the most part I think it was a positive experience, but I think it would absolutely help if there was some gender balance in the room. Not all founders comfortably face a room full of, well, not all female founders comfortably pitch in front of a room of 4 to 6 investors, male investors, and so little things like that, I think, as a little effort would go a long way. All of the investment groups have female investors, and so something like that would have been.
So basically
ideal.
encouraging more female investors to step in and start mentoring and getting involved in the startup system. Amazing.
I think it's also about making sure that you've got, and I have to acknowledge that the Australian VCs have done a great job at being very conscious of bias. And in the last year, they've really, really done a huge amount of work in trying to think about how they are more female friendly. I think that's really critical, and I think they're doing a good job. I think there's more to do, but they're definitely doing a really good job in raising the bar there.
Yeah.
How about age? Do you think age comes into it as well? Do you think that goes against you as well?
Totally, absolutely.
There's so much bias.
There is so much bias.
But it's what you were saying before about unconscious bias as well. There's so much of that there's so many studies done on, the world is run by white males, right? And there's so many studies done around people looking favourably around people that look like them and act like them. And there's a lot to do around that area, and diversity in general. It's not, like you say, it's not just females, it's not just age, it's ethnicity, it's just a whole range of range of unconscious bias that goes on. Yeah.
And we see age being a massive issue in the workforce, in the tech sector and in other sectors. If you reach a certain age, people say it's about 50 years old. You get over a hurdle, and if you become unemployed, it's much harder to re-enter the workforce. And some nice gentleman either asking a question or sharing a concern. But think how much experience these people have got, and you know, if you're many of them would make ideal founders. They have got so much experience, they've seen so much. There is actually a lot to be said for age. I think that movies like Facebook have romanticised the young founder, and I am very conscious that we're sitting next to two.
I'll talk about the age bias on the other side in a minute.
The average founder is 37 years old. Not many people realise that. So, you know, the average successful founder, I should say, the average founder is about 25. The average successful founder is 37. And all that is saying is that the longer you spend in the workforce, the more you're experiencing problems, the deeper you understand those problems, the more likely you are to solve for a real market. So it's not rocket science, but it doesn't mean to say you can't be young and found a company, not at all. And we want young people founding companies, but you also want old people founding companies. Age is a big issue, and it's something that we've got to call out.
Yeah.
So I think on the other side of the spectrum as being a young founder. So I founded my company at 22, was dealing with massive global Fortune 500s at age 22, and there's a huge bias there in being too young. And so as much as there's sort of the Mark Zuckerberg movement in terms of you can be young and you can be, there's still this other side where it's like you don't know enough, you're not experienced, you haven't had enough years doing this. So I think there's bias on both sides, trying to, do $1 million contracts for massive companies at age 22, 23. There's huge bias there, huge. They don't, it's almost, I think it's on both sides, and we just kind of need to go with, all right, well, you're good at this and you do this and it doesn't matter what age you are. Yeah.
Cool. We'll take some questions now from the audience.
I have to leave in
Okay.
about 3 minutes.
Okay. What question do you want to answer? Go for it.
Do you support mentor founders who are not raising capital? Yes, absolutely. Some people, I'm going to answer this one. Some people I mentor, even as a VC who's wanting to make money, I will also side on what's best for their business, and that might not be raising capital at that point. So mentoring them to not raise capital. Or I have a lot of people that come to me that say, I want to raise $1.5 million. I'm like, what do you want $1.5 million for? What are you raising that for right now? Stagger it, or you're going to dilute less if you raise a small amount now because this is the point you're at in the market, or whatever that might be. So definitely, 100% supporting people that don't want to raise capital either ever or right now. Some people run off revenue forever. I mean, look at Atlassian, they run off revenue until they raised after a very long time. So
yeah. And what's the worst experience that you've had from a gender perspective?
Oh, okay. I've had people that won't speak to me as a woman in terms of when I was capital raising. They wanted to just speak to my co-founder, who was a male. I've had that kind of bias, which I hope is going away now a lot more. We're speaking out a lot more as women. This was, about 2 years ago, so I think a lot's been done in 2 years. Not great, because it's pretty recent, but I think we are doing a lot more. There are particular people you'll come across that are very old school mindset and do not think a woman's place is in business. You just get it all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about you, Charles?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate. I've been in similar experiences in an investor pitch where I just couldn't get through the pitch, actually.
Yeah.
And I think I just passed it on to my co-founder.
Yeah.
I was like, it was so disorienting because 5 minutes in, I'm like, I wouldn't even take money if you gave it to me for free. But what do? You sit through it and you're like, thanks, but no thanks, on your way. And then, you know, I think you'll get the old school types. So I've been in conversations with, you know, certain partners where if there are males in the room, even though I am directly having a conversation with him, the answers will always almost be directed at the men in the room, which is interesting. So yeah, I think that it does. It does. Yep, even when you don't notice it.
Yeah.
And how did you come up with the name, Finch?
Ooh, that's a good one. So Finch is, does a couple of things. So short-term Finch is short for Finance Made Cinch. And then it also reflects our long-term strategy, which is financial channel. So our philosophy is we're starting at social payments, but we'd like to grow with our customers as their financial priorities change over time. So we would like to be the millennial financial platform for these customers. And then Finch, of course, you know, from marketing, it's one syllable, it's easy to remember, and it's a cute little bird.
Oh, I like it.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Or?
I'll wrap it up there.
No? Cool.
Yeah, I need to leave.
Here you go.
Yes, we got flights.
Oh, I got fly. I got a fly. Yeah, I'm
Back
flying
on your feet
out.
one more time. A big thank you to everyone for coming tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you.